Is financial education part of, I have a couple of questions. Is financial education part of your program?
I don't want to use an unprotected mic.
Very smart, very smart.
So, yeah.
That's a different type of education.
It is a different type of education. I don't remember the exact percentage, but I want to say it's like in the 85% area of our staff are certified financial counselors. So most of our staff are certified financial counselors. I'm super proud of that. That's something that we've been really pushing for over the course of the last few years. We also have a partnership with Balance, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Because we do see that, right? Like we do see where housing counseling, and let me stand up so you're not like leaving about it. So we do see like where, housing counseling and financial counseling could be, very different types of education that we're trying to provide. And they do align, but they're not exact matches, right? Like, so, in some cases, if it's like not now, but when, well, now it might not be housing counseling. Now it might be like, okay, like let's get your finances in order first. Listen, he did mine. He had to come to my house because I'm reckless. I spend money for no reason at all. And Joe built me a spreadsheet because he's been in the financial counseling game for, since before I was born. I'm lying. But yeah, I mean, so I understand that there's different skill sets, and yeah.
So it's not a requirement of your fair mortgage loan. And the other question I had was, you talked a lot about self-employment, which is a great category that we sometimes struggle with, especially when it comes to gig workers. So you took care of compensation, you said tips. I just want to make sure, do you consider gig workers self-employed?
Yes.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Of course.
I mentioned that I had done, courses at TV over years, and Actors Federal was our biggest contract. And I'm an actor too, I'm in all the unions, I've been doing it for years. Imagine being an actor where so many of the jobs are one-day jobs, okay? And you rack up a W-2 for every job. So the average actor who's working a lot, might have 80 to 200 jobs a year, depending on how much they're working. Go into a lender and say, I'd like a loan, okay? And imagine how that goes. So, 30 years ago, we were like, well, we could, we have to figure out a way to get our people, to the finish line. And so we designed a way to, we basically treated them as though they were self-employed. We did require 2 years of it, but they had to have 2 years of multiple sources of income. So, it was difficult. If you were in a long-running Broadway show, which we allowed, you to use as a regular pay stub job, if that show closed and then you were out doing the gigs, the daily gigs, then you had to wait 2 years. So they kind of fell in between a rock and a hard place. Not a lot of them, but yeah, they've been doing that for years and years with incredible success. Yeah. Do an income average.
Thank you.
Just clarification on that, so you don't have all of W-2s?
Well, I don't go through payroll companies, but yeah. I mean, I would have a stack of W-2s on my desk.
So I'm thinking about like ad workers.
Yeah. Well, we do at Inclusive. We're doing that for ITIN borrowers, migrant workers. They go from farm to farm and rack up a different W-2 for each job. So we're basically doing income averages. Just pretending like they're self-employed when they aren't.
And just in general, the service economy has changed so much, and if we don't recognize that, I came from Las Vegas where people were making minimum wage on W-2s, but they were making $100,000 a year. They shouldn't be, penalized for tips, and I think it's just an awareness we all need to have.
Exactly.
More and more of the economy, so.
And I think a lot of industries too, like seasonal workers with unemployment, so we would use that to actually qualify because that's a normal standard practice. If they're working up on the mountain for skiing, then they are collecting unemployment, even actors too. So yeah.
And it's interesting listening to Jerome, because I love this guy. He's like, I consider him a financial philosopher. Like, he really thinks about what he's doing. You know, he's not just throwing stuff on the wall and seeing what sticks. He's really, really thoughtful, which is great. But, you know, I had a lot of questions, because you know, even just no credit score minimum at first, I was like, how do I do that? But, you know, since then, I've reduced ours from 620 to 580 because I was doing so many exceptions in there. And since then, I'm gonna eventually get rid of ours. I'm gonna just, because, you know, it's not like everybody who has a 580 credit score is worthy of, you know, is credit worthy. You know, you have to be doing manual underwriting. You have to really be analyzing them, and are they credit worthy? We just gave a loan to somebody in an active Chapter 13 bankruptcy. They had 18 months to go. The wife became disabled. It just completely turned their life upside down. They were, you know, I looked at their financials before and after, and they were great before, and they just couldn't quite get, you know, without help. And so why wouldn't I do that? You know, do we know any lenders that are doing active Chapter 13 bankruptcies?
So, yeah.
In the mainstream? I don't know. You know, but why not do that if we can? You know, we're credit unions. We're there to help our people.
We do look differently at Chapter 13 versus Chapter 10, 7 versus Chapter 7. Because I think that there is a difference. I mean, there's a pretty big difference as far as I'm concerned. Like, so if somebody has, you know, filed a Chapter 7, and through that Chapter 7, they've worked out a 5-year repayment plan, and they've made every single payment on time, why would I not want to give them a mortgage?
Sure,
Right?
especially when they have a good reason for the bankruptcy. And there's a lot of good reasons. You know, we're all set. That's why medical collections. I don't know about you guys, but I've never even considered medical collections or utilities collection. Anything that any person is subjected to be screwed by at any given time. You know, it's no reflection on credit whatsoever. Credit worthiness. I have a question because I wanted you guys to hear this, so that maybe some light bulbs will go off, and you think, you know, a little bit maybe outside of your comfort zone, see something different that you can do, or expand on what you're already doing. So my question for you, Jerome, and you've gotten this before. Your program has no minimum credit score, no down payment, no PMI, no automatic disqualifications for things like BKs, no reserve requirements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you convince your board to go along with this? Because that stops a lot of you from getting where you want to go, all right? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was really a tough one, because I think what I mentioned to the young lady's question earlier, as far as like you know, wanting to do more than, like, I wanted to do all of it originally. Like, my first draft of this was everything was included, right? But I definitely had to keep the board in mind, and who was on the board, to just kind of say, like, okay, I can get past some of this. Some of this I'm not going to be able to get past. Some of this I'm just not going to be able to convince them to do that right now. But what can I push? How far can I push? So I pushed as far as I think that I could probably go. And when it was ready to submit to the board, and when the board finally, you know, was in a position to be able to take a look at what we were trying to do, and they asked the board if there were any objections. And, you know, we're all on Zoom and Teams, where we were on Teams, and, you know, the board went around, and nobody said anything. And it was just like, all right, well, was there a first? And somebody raised their hand. It's like, well, is there a second? And somebody else raised their hand. It's like, okay, the motion's passed. We're going to do it. I'm looking at the screen like, what the just happened? Right? So, like, I've got a tear going down my face. Right? My VP is on text with me, and she's like, you're crying, aren't you? And I'm like, yes. Are you crying too? She's like, yes. Right? And then she sent me flowers the next day. So, You don't know if you don't try. You don't know if you don't try, and I think that with your boards, like, your boards will tell you what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with, and it's okay to start somewhere and then make adjustments, show success, make adjustments. Maybe you're not gonna get everything that you want at the same time, but get somewhere and push the needle a little bit, but it's gonna take you, because your board is not gonna write your product for you. So just outline everything, get as much in there as you possibly can. Don't go crazy or go crazy. But try something.
I just want to add though, I mean, coming from being new into an organization, we decided what our brand was going to be, and you heard Diana talk about, Rice Credit, sorry. You heard Diana talk about, we leaned into a social impact business model, which meant that the board had to be on board with that, and they accepted the brand. So we remind them every single meeting of what we're here for. We do mission moments every meeting, just to kind of keep that top of mind, because it's really hard with examiners, and you've got all this kind of other things coming up in your mind. Board meetings tend to be operational, and you gotta remind them about why we're here. And so I know that if we brought a program to our board, they would say, yes, where do we sign right now? Because we all have the ability to have non-conforming loans in our portfolio if we reserve adequately, we have checks and balances in place. So, you know, I would just say, as a CEO leading the board, getting their confirmation around who you are and why you're here, you won't have any problems moving programs forward.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think that I want to keep focused to what my goal was to coming to Cleveland, graciously being invited by Bob, who I have a lot of respect for, is I want you to steal my product, our product. I want you to steal the alternatives product. I will give it to you and say, here, because we can only do so much. And in the short time that we're here on this planet, I want to make as much difference as I humanly possibly can. And I know that you all do too. So I will give you my card. If you're interested, I will send you whatever I can and help you. I don't need anything other than your success stories, because that's what I'm driven on. So.
One last question?
Yes, behind the border.
My X-ray vision is a little off today.
Come on, you're
What's your asset size?
A little over 1.2. Yeah. A little over 1.2 million.
And your net worth ratio is?
It's a head of 10%, like.
Okay. So let's just presume that we have a 2008. And we have a lot of women that it's on the books. And I'm asking this question only because not to poke holes into any of it, but are you NCUA, are you federally chartered?
Yes.
And they're okay?
Yes, again, it's about concentration risk,
Yeah.
loan loss reserves,
Yep.
and really strong operations.
And
As
how
Bill
you-
mentioned, you follow the rules that you set.
And properly documenting
Yeah,
what you're doing.
Documenting everything.
absolutely, yeah, proper
And
documentation.
which state?
Pardon?
Which state?
California, which is one of the hardest states by
Are you in
the
LA?
work in.
Are you in the LA area?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
We're also in Nevada, I mean, we serve Nevada and,
Okay, I'm just curious, only because, and that's great, I applaud you for that. I think it's a wonderful program to offer your members. So I'm in Guam, and, although it's a very good program, our board, it go for that. But everybody is different. It's all about that concentration risk.
it's about good ALM.
Just an observation. So thank you.
We are out of time, but I want to thank all of you for being here today. I thought it was quite fun. And enjoy the rest of the conference.